The 2025-2026 Premier League season for me is one that is going to be very, very complicated. One that is going to be difficult for anyone to predict. I know the bookies and pundits and all these guys are predicting that Liverpool probably win the league and Arsenal will finish second, or the title race is going to be between Arsenal and Liverpool. Everybody is shitting on Manchester City. Nobody is even talking about Chelsea, and nobody is even imagining if there is going to be a Leicester City from anywhere to challenge for the title. And my thoughts are slightly different, and it might not be a popular opinion, but I feel yesterday I saw Arsenal's preseason game against Tottenham, and it's obviously a preseason actually, but it was played like a Premier League match because of the whole North London derby rivalry and stuff. It was a very tense game, and I could make two things from that yesterday's game. Obviously, Tottenham are not going to be the Tottenham of last season. Under Thomas Frank, they are going to improve drastically. They are going to play differently. They are going to be a difficult side to beat. And of course, Arsenal, to an extent, Arsenal played that game. They had one shot on target, and that was from Kai Havertz in the second half. That was around that 60-something minutes after the first half. Arsenal had no shot on target. And Tottenham Hotspur dominated them in the middle of the park. And Arteta, Arsenal players, all of them had no answers for the questions that Tottenham, were asking. And that really got to me. That was the only preseason that I watched. And I'm not going to judge Arsenal season by preseason, but I feel Arsenal are not going to be the force they've been the last 3 years. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel. I feel they've done some good businesses here and there, but those businesses are not good enough. I think as far as I'm concerned, Arsenal have only signed 2 players this transfer window, and those 2 players are Gyökeres as well as Zubimendi. And, bringing him back up for Madueke as backup for Saka. If Saka is injured, Madueke cannot get anywhere close to what Saka does for Arsenal. And I don't know Mosquera very well, but I think maybe at the back they have Kivior, they have Mosquera, Gabriel Magalhaes, they have Saliba. I think their defensive line is okay, but every other aspect of the game, the only attacking midfielder they have is Odegaard. And there's no improvement on that. There's no real competition for him. And I think he's not creative enough in terms of creating chances and scoring goals. He doesn't do that quite often. And that's the place where Arsenal are going to lack so much. Because yesterday, they couldn't create any reasonable chances for Kai Havertz. Same thing, even the last 18 or 15 minutes that Gyökeres was on the pitch. It was a young star, man was trying to make things happen and blah, blah, and everything. So, with the business Chelsea have done, with the options they have now, Cucurella, that played the whole of last season without a backup, currently has one now with Yuri Hato coming in. And then, of course, Xavi Simons is going to come in, hopefully, and he's going to, he's a versatile player that can play as a backup to Kopama. He can play on the left as well. He can play as a false 9, and then there's João Pedro who can play as a 10 as well, can play as a 9. So Chelsea have multiple options, in their attacking tower. Their midfield is stock, is complete. Their defense is taking shape. I think the only place I might have concern is the goalkeeper position. And Sanchez is still Sanchez, but he has improved from the Sanchez under Pochettino and the Sanchez at the beginning of the season under Maresca. And, the FIFA Club World Cup just showed me a direction that Chelsea is going. Before that FIFA Club World Cup, Chelsea had gone 14 or 15 matches without losing a game. The only 2 games they lost in that run was one against Newcastle, and later they lost against Flamengo. In all these games, Jackson was red carded. So everybody is not talking about Chelsea. And there's one thing about Chelsea. An underdog Chelsea is one that you should pay attention to. Anytime Chelsea goes into the season and is underrated, you remember last season, nobody really, I think it was only Darren Bent that predicted that Chelsea were going to finish in the top four. Though they started the season very well at some point, we were called title contenders, we fell off, and then everybody wrote Chelsea off. Nobody predicted that they were going to finish in the top four, and they came back strongly, even though they had the most difficult matches on paper as compared to the other teams, and they still managed to finish in the top four, and they still went on and won the World Cup. So Manchester City, probably everybody is shitting on them, but Haaland is still one of the best strikers in the Premier League. There's a Foden who, on his day, can actually do some magic. They brought in Aït-Nouri, and they brought Rangers. They signed some decent players like Sheki, and of course the final piece of the jigsaw is Guardiola. Guardiola knows how to play the league. He knows how to win the league. And everybody is looking at Manchester City as a team that is not really going to compete, and I'm just here laughing. So the Premier League next season for me is going to be very, very unpredictable. And I don't see Liverpool running away with the league. At the start of last season, they were good, and the mid-season, towards the end of the season, they were found out, and of course, they looked ordinary. They lost games that most people didn't really predict. So they've made some good signings. If you look at their backline, they only have Van Dijk, who is 34. They have Konate, who is somehow injury prone. There's no real backup. They've done some very make sense business in the attacking end. Of course, they still want to bring in Isak, which is like good business, but I think no team for me is looking like a team that is going to run away with the league. And Chelsea has like an opportunity. I think Chelsea should be talked upon, like in the whole title race debate. But it's good for Chelsea and Chelsea fans, like that whole pressure of putting Chelsea in the title race is not there. And but I see Arsenal closer to third, and they're closer to finishing first. But that's just my honest opinion. And I think the title race next season is going to be very open. And I'll always give it to Guardiola. As long as Guardiola is in the Premier League or is any league, I'll always give the league to him until proven otherwise. So I see Chelsea finishing between 1, 2, and 3. I also see Manchester City finishing between 1, 2, or 3. Liverpool, still 1 to 3. Arsenal can do that as well, but the whole summary of this thing is to tell you that the Premier League race is unpredictable at this point, and no amount of signing determines whether or not you are going to have a good Premier League season. You can make all the signings, and a team can just have one or two together, and then boom. Like Liverpool, most people didn't really expect Liverpool to win the league. Yes, last season. And Slot came in, did his magic, got everything right, and luck was on his side. There were little or no injuries, and then boom. And then, of course, it happens like that sometimes. So I see the title race at this point is undecided, and I think the first 5 to 10 games of the season for me are the games that are going to, determine whether or not a team is going to win the league. And Chelsea have some very interesting games that on paper they look easy. So if they can take advantage, then they are going to have a very good head start, and you never can tell. So